Okay, I'm making a little video about flight simulation, and what I'm showing here in this video is a little bit of playing around with X-Plane. So I've got a Cessna 172 SPE here in front of me, and this is X-Plane's rendition of Grand Central Airport in Midrand. Not very faithful, but it's there. We've got all kinds of other planes here. What's beautiful here is the scale of it, as usual. Looks like a full-size plane because I'm sitting down in this chair. That it looks a bit higher now, if that makes sense. If I were to stand up, the wing is about my head level, which is correct. I've got some foot pedals here by my feet that I'm going to use. You can actually see if I step on the pedal there to do steering of the nose wheel and the yaw on the tail. So that's giving me my rudder control. The rest I'm just doing with these. And we're going to see in a moment how faithful that is. So if I were a purist, I could do a walk around and check every little piece of gear here under the wing, or check out the wheel pants, or inspect the propeller, do all kinds of fun stuff. But let's pretend for today that we know this plane is fine, and I can just get in the pilot's seat and fire her up. So let's close the door. Are you being tricky? No. Cool. So from here, let's just recenter me here. From here I can start the plane the way I would any other day. I should note when my tracking glitches out when I go too low. That's just because my table is blocking off the sensors. But I can flip this around to right tanks, a little bit of throttle. Let's turn on our beacon and our strobe. Turn on the fuel pump. Parking brake is set. Let's go feet on the brakes, which will unset our parking brake, but I've got my feet on the brakes. And we have an engine that's starting. On an idle at 1000 RPM. Let's turn on our nav light. Yeah, let's leave that like that. Glitching out again. Left tanks for taxi. And turn. Oh, my avionics switches on. Oh well, we can turn off the fuel pump at this point. Now I can grab the yoke with this hand and basically put it down on my armrest here, but I'm still controlling the yoke with just little movements with this left hand, so that's just going to stay there basically most of the time, because well, most people are actually flying, unless you're an autopilot, you've got your left hand on the stick usually, and you're doing other stuff with your right hand here. So I want to take off on runway 35 here, just for my sanity. I'm putting that heading bug there. So, and let's commence some taxi. Check for traffic. Come off the brakes, and now I can steer with my feet. Moderating my brake usage here. So the pedals I'm using are actually just racing pedals for like a racing steering wheel setup, but that doesn't have toe brakes like a real plane would have. However, they've emulated it with a little plug-in script that I had to go find online, where if I simply press both pedals down with my feet, it applies the brakes. This does make it a bit tricky, so because if I apply one side more than the other side wants to turn that way, which is how they emulate how the toe brakes would usually work, but just makes it a little bit more tricky to control. However, it's better than nothing. So we can see our oil pressure and temperature are getting up to operating temperatures and pressures. I was actually surprised that I hadn't shown anybody this except for a few close friends that I made a little testing video, and I ended up sending that out to some people, but I'm making this more for general consumption, so I'm not being as specific or as accurate. I'm not going to do a run-up. We're just going to eyeball our mixture and call it a day. On the simulator I've turned off failures, so I'm not going to worry too much about T's and P's and doing run-ups and checking that all the instruments are great and that the radios work and all that fun stuff. Very little risk of dying. So, hasten the taxi. Just going to select both tanks for takeoff. Hold short of, and let's just check if everything's cool. We're gonna just switch the landing light on when we get on the runway. Get 15 degrees of flaps in there to help with the takeoff. There is no wind. I don't know if you saw the windsock there earlier, but it's pretty much dead. There's the windsock down there, if you can see that. So let's line up on 3.5. That, as we can see, the heading bug is exactly right. Full brakes applied, landing lights on. Release the brakes. Now we're just fighting the engine torque. Wants to steer the airplane left. Just fighting that with the rudders. Oh, that takes quite a bit of rudder. Come on, there we go. It's going to settle into a 70 knot climb here. After takeoff checks, mixture is set, tanks are on both, landing light off, P's and P's are in the green. We're going to start removing the flaps and speeding up. It's going to cause a little bit of a drop, but our climb will commence again. There we go. The realism of this is breathtaking. Can even trim a bit if I want, but I find the fact that I'm holding it with this hand all the time, and I do have to hold it in a certain position to keep the plane stable, kind of means I minimally use the trim, and instinctively I've been keeping my hand on the rudder to keep the turn coordinator ball in the middle. That's just something I do. Climbing past 6,000. So generally the rule at Grand Central is 1,000 feet above the ground, which is 5,500. We're going to turn for a crosswind. Losing some speed, so I'm climbing a bit harshly. And I think I'm going to maintain pattern altitude here, so let's come off it a little bit. Okay, let go of some of that pressure on the rudder to keep us coordinated. Just going to do some standard right turns here, nothing too aggressive. But that is amazing. Being able to check stuff out like that. Straight and level, 80 knots. Beautiful flying. my opinion. There's our airport. Now I could stop it right here because this is just too much fun, but I'm sure it's not a flying video if somebody doesn't try to land a plane, which is no pressure on me. So what we're doing here is we're just checking where the airport is in relation to the plane. That is a height glitch I sometimes get, and then it corrects itself. Typically in games that are a bit more demanding on the hardware, that tends to happen, and I'm trying to get that about 45 degrees there. I think this is about good. Normally traffic would enter from that side into the pattern, so I'm just checking there to see if there's any traffic before I'm entering. I am trying to lose some altitude because I've climbed a bit too high. That's about there. We've gone a little bit too far. That'll be downwind more or less. Still just keeping an eye on the airfield, make sure we're cool. Fuel tanks are both, my mixture is still set. We're not applying flaps at this point. We're looking good, altitude's good. Engine is also looking good. Now we've established back on pattern altitude, so a little bit more power to maintain that altitude while keeping our airspeed up where it's more or less supposed to be. What's very nice about this is I feel like I'm actually training. As you can see, all the controls are available to me. I can turn every single knob I want to turn. I can tune radios, use the GPS to do things, set transponder codes. No worries, it's a real plane as far as I'm concerned at this point. You can apply 10 degrees of flaps. Still struggling to dial in that fight of the pitch up you get the moment you apply the flaps, but hey, it works. We can probably slow down a little bit. Almost 45. Oh, come on. There will work. This is terrible if you ask anyone. Some more flaps. Start our descent. Actually, I'm going to try and keep the speed up a little bit. For making shorter video. Just keeping an eye out there on the runway, which I can kind of see now. Can increase our descent rate. Trim down a little bit to help me here. Generally, you want to keep pressure off of the stick using the trims, but there's no pressure here. There's nothing to feed back to me telling when the airplane's trimmed. It's just kind of hold the stick. So I have overshot the runway a little bit, because we're just going to do a little teardrop to get back. Or high. Let's increase that descent rate. That's better. Landing lights on. Just keeping these Varsi lights 50-50. We're gonna have to start losing speed now, so let's just do that as we get down. I want to go to about 55 but not below that until we're over the threshold. Flare it. There we go. Keep that nose up. Just to bleed away speed. There we go. We can apply brakes. Like I said, that sensitivity of getting them exactly equal, quite difficult, because the racing pedals are just not designed for airplane sims, so the pressure on the brake and the throttle are different. And we have landed. So let's vacate the runway. Bring the plane to a halt. 1000 RPM. Switch back to come on now. Left tanks for taxi. We can take the flaps out, landing light off. Check for traffic, and then we can taxi again. Now obviously I'm not working the radios here as I would have to in real life. There are some options for that, but I've never quite explored them for doing online traffic control. Grand Central has a traffic information service anyway. It doesn't have traffic control as such. really need to get me better rudders. Let's go there. That's alright, thanks. Yeah, keep that on. Radio's off. Come now. Left thanks. Beacons off. Electrics off. I let go of the stick, so we never did let go of it. So all the flags come on and things turn off. Very cool. Go open the door. If we can remember to do that. And get out the plane. Cool bunnies. Perfect flight simulation. Man, if I needed any more reasons for VR, this is one of the top ones. This is too much fun. Anyway, there you are. Thanks for watching.